This week's change of power in Washington has already begun to shape the future of life in the United States, America's Jewish community, and the world. At our communal gathering this past Wednesday, people shared their fear for the future. People described deep concern for the world in which our children are growing up, including rising anti-Semitism as well as unabating gun violence and school shootings. People expressed alarm over the fate of minorities and marginalized groups in a political culture that increasingly divides us into those who really belong and the other. We recalled how whatever disagreements might have existed between, say, Senator McCain and then Senator Obama, the fundamentals on which we could all agree always endured. For example, when McCain and Colin Powell famously spoke out, saying it is a lie that Obama is Muslim. And as Powell added, if he were a Muslim, there would be nothing wrong with that. How far away that time seems now. How can we work through fear, despair, and all the emotions of this time and find healing, resilience, and courage to persist? In this week's Parsha, Moses is striving to free the children of Israel from slavery in Egypt. The Parsha begins where last week's Parsha left off, when Moses first stood before Pharaoh saying, "Let my people go," and Pharaoh, unmoved, made the Israelites' workloads even more oppressive. This week, the 10 plagues begin. Moses goes back to Pharaoh again and again, challenging him, "Let my people go." With each plague, Pharaoh falsely offers freedom, only to rescind it once the plague ends. By the end of this Parsha, 7 plagues have passed, 7 rounds of challenging Pharaoh, yet the people are still enslaved. Pharaoh has not relented. Moses must wonder, am I making any difference? Nothing has changed. We know as readers that the Exodus story has 10 plagues, and so getting through 7 means getting close to freedom. But Moses does not know how many plagues it will take for Pharaoh to free the people, or if he will ever free the people. Still, throughout the Exodus story, Moses keeps going back to Pharaoh time after time to challenge him. It must have been so intimidating to challenge the most powerful person in the entire world they knew. It might have seemed pointless to keep challenging this implacable tyrant. Yet Moses finds the resilience he needs. He finds it through acknowledgement of reality, empathy, and support from others, staying true to his ideals, proactive steps to remedy suffering, and in the midst of it all, the support of the divine presence, according to what this means for each of us. God articulates these values to Moses at the beginning of the long journey of the Exodus. In the scene at the burning bush in last week's Parsha, God says, "I am the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. I indeed have seen the abuse of my people that is in Egypt, and their outcry because of their taskmasters. I have heard, and I know their pain. And I have come down to rescue them from the hand of Egypt." What does it mean to say God sees, hears, or knows something? As the celebrated current-day Rabbi Rachel Timoner of Brooklyn teaches, the idea of God is meant to get us in touch with all that is vaster than we are. The presence of all the truth, ethics, and love in the world. The infinite presence that our ancestors knew, going back to Abraham and Sarah, and the presence those after us will know one day. An eternal presence vaster than any status quo. Later on in the burning bush scene, God describes God's self as Ehyeh Asher Ehyeh. I will be that I will be. The venerable Bible scholar Robert Alter of UC Berkeley interprets this name for God as meaning, whereas particular actions may be attributed to humans, to God alone belongs unlimited, unconditional being. This presence of infinite being is what Moses senses at the burning bush. In it, Moses senses a presence that bears witness to reality. In this case, the reality that Pharaoh is enslaving the children of Israel, that slavery is wrong, and that the Israelites have done nothing to deserve their suffering. By acknowledging the people's outcry and pain, God affirms that pain and crying out are normal emotional responses to suffering. And God's words offer empathy. The divine presence cares about people's pain. As Moses goes before Pharaoh repeatedly, we can remember Moses in this moment and sense that this divine affirmation and empathy have stayed with him and given him strength. With this divine affirmation, Moses knows it is right to object to slavery and abuse, and it is normal to feel pain and cry out. Moses knows that when he acts, he does not stand alone. He bears the support of the divine presence, whose call he is answering. We too can find steadiness and resilience as Moses did. When we acknowledge the reality of a challenging situation, we can feel the dignity of Moses at the burning bush. When we feel pain and cry out, these are normal responses to challenging times. When we stay true to the values of our tradition and strive to live them out, we always have backing beyond ourselves in the divine presence that Moses knew. We sense this empowerment in this week's Parsha in the fact that Moses does not say only, "Let my people go." Specifically, he adds, "Thus said the Eternal One," or the Lord, Adonai, "Let my people go that they may serve me." Moses is saying to Pharaoh, this idea that slavery and abuse are wrong, this isn't my idea. This idea comes from a force far greater than any of us, from the presence of all the truth, ethics, and love in the world, from the divine presence. We sense deep self-assurance and fearlessness in Moses' words, invoking God as his backer. We hear this spirit in Moses' very language, in the short rhythmic punch of the words, and the way Moses repeats them throughout the Parsha like a chant. "Thus said the Eternal One, let my people go, that they may serve me. Ko amar Adonai, shlach et ami v'ya'avduni." We also sense Moses' self-assurance in delivering God's clinching words, "that they may serve me." Moses is reminding Pharaoh tautly, "Pharaoh, you know, there is something more powerful than you, more powerful than any of us mere mortals. And that is what we are here on earth to serve, not you or any one human being, no matter how powerful." These truths can steady us no matter what we face, as they steadied Moses. We find a modern example in the words of the first openly gay presidential candidate, Pete Buttigieg. "If me being gay was a choice, it was a choice that was made far, far above my pay grade. If you've got a problem with who I am, your problem is not with me. Your quarrel is with my Creator." This is not a partisan statement. One can imagine that perhaps Mary Cheney might say something similar. When we strive to fulfill our tradition's values as best we can, we do not stand alone. The divine presence supports us. None of us can know exactly what God would say, but we can do our sincere level best to discern it and to live by it. When we do, we can hold the knowledge close to our hearts that the divine presence, the power of all the ethics and love in the world, is with us. On this note, I want to acknowledge that these times are especially precarious for LGBT plus people and women, as well as all marginalized groups and minorities, including Jews, and especially for those who hold more than one of these identities. Beth Shalom is devoted to welcoming all people, just as we are, across the full rainbow of the human family. We as a congregation promise to live up to our name, a house of peace, or it might be translated, a house of safety. If you are in trouble for any reason, in addition to calling 911 in an emergency, please always feel welcome to come talk with me, whether for pastoral care or, for example, if you need to travel out of state to obtain an abortion, which is permissible in halakha, Jewish law, and you need funds, which are available from the Rabbinic Discretionary Fund. If you would feel more comfortable, you can also set up a time to talk with our congregational administrator, Sarah Portwood, she, her, or our interim education director, Devin Nelson, they, them. We are here for you so that we can all be here for each other. Jewish tradition teaches that the divine presence is a presence of empathy and a source of love. As for Moses, so too for us. In hard times, we may not always feel this sense of divine love, and that is okay to acknowledge. As the great mystic Rabbi Nachman of Breslov of 19th century Ukraine wrote, "Make every effort to pray from the heart. Even if you do not succeed, the effort is precious in the eyes of the Eternal One." When we read in the Torah God's words of empathy for our enslaved ancestors, we are reminded that those who are suffering deserve empathy. This truth itself can offer us solace and comfort and bolster us. Moses also finds resilience through not carrying out his mission alone, but together with his brother Aaron. Aaron supports Moses in the part of the job that worries him the most, his speech impediment. Moses discerns God's instructions, passes them on to Aaron, and Aaron speaks God's words to Pharaoh. In this way, Aaron supports Moses both practically and emotionally and empowers Moses. When God first tells Moses that Aaron is coming to meet him to serve as his interpreter, God says, "And Aaron will be happy in his heart to see you." The great Torah commentator Chizkuni of 13th century France interprets this phrase as meaning, Aaron will be happy for you that you became a prophet and will not be jealous of you. Moses, in turn, never shows arrogance to Aaron, but only respect. This spirit is what Moses and Aaron share: pure, unstinting affection, true partnership, and love. We might ask ourselves, how can we be each other's Moses and Aaron? What can we do to seek out the Aarons in our lives? I would suggest that all of us, by being here face-to-face or joining online, are sharing in a powerful way to do so, joining together in Jewish community. We gather together in Shabbat services, at the oneg after, in study, as friends outside the walls of Beth Shalom, so that we can all be Aarons for each other. We sense as well that Moses may gain resilience from doing the work that his moment calls him to do. Moses profoundly doubts himself, both at the burning bush in last week's Parsha and again at the start of this week's Parsha. Once the 10 plagues begin, Moses does not doubt himself again. The narrative flows forward in a rhythmic, refrain-like repetition. Moses challenges Pharaoh, a plague comes, Pharaoh offers concessions, the plague subsides. We sense that the rhythm of action is carrying Moses forward as it carries us forward as readers. Pharaoh reneges on his word after each plague, and we sense the boundless frustration Moses must feel. Yet the rhythm of action, the momentum, is powerful enough to see Moses through. The drive of this mission seems to give Moses strength. It keeps him focused rather than falling into despair. And he can take solace in knowing that he is doing all he can to better the situation. At the burning bush, God says that God has come to rescue the people from abuse and pain. But God cannot do so alone. God needs Moses to partner with God. Divine rescue comes in the form of human rescue. So too, we might ask ourselves, what can we do in our time to better the situation? Whether through the words we share with others, through organizations whose ideals we admire, or in any number of ways. Who is in pain or facing abuse whom we can support? How can we discern, surely imperfectly, but as best as we are able, what divine rescue might look like now, and how can we work to fulfill divine rescue through human rescue. We may at times have different ideas of what this looks like, and that is a good thing because situations are complex and each of us is unique. Jewish tradition guides us to share in the dialogue of a dispute for the sake of heaven, machloket l'shem shamayim, or loosely translated, different ideas for the sake of all that is greater than we are. When we share in this dialogue and do this work, may we too feel the sense of rhythm, momentum, and drive that Moses felt, and may it see us through. Finally, we have one more source of strength that Moses did not have: memory. We can draw strength and inspiration from inheriting Moses' story, as well as the countless stories throughout Jewish history of endurance and resilience and the values of freedom and equality that these stories evoke. For a modern example of the way memory can call us and bolster us, let us consider the story of our beloved community member Jack Kahn, who died last September. Jack and his family escaped from Nazi Germany. There were even times when Jack's father was separated from Jack, his sister, and his mother. Jack always identified as a refugee, and in 2018, at Bloomington's World Refugee Day celebration, Jack spoke out publicly on behalf of refugees amid the migrant crisis at America's southern border. Jack said, "I know what these people are going through. Separating children from families is just unimaginable. If I can do anything, I just want to show my support." Jack lived by the mitzvah repeated most often in the Torah in varying phrasings. Love the stranger, hager, literally the migrant, for you are migrants in the land of Egypt. In all these ways, acknowledgement of reality, empathy and mutual care, staying true to our ideals, acting to better the situation, and sensing the support of the divine presence amidst us, we can find the resilience, healing, and empowerment that Moses found to lead us out of slavery in Egypt and into freedom. I have twice cited from this bima one of my favorite Israeli songs by the great singer-songwriter Meir Ariel. The song's name and chorus is, "We got through Pharaoh, we'll get through this too. Avarnu et Paro, na'avor gam et zeh." The word get through, cross through, or cross over, avar, has the same root as ha-ivrim, the Hebrews, one of the names of our ancestors, along with the name children of Israel. The Hebrews means the crossers, the traversers. This is a powerful legacy that we inherit. Our ancestors developed meaningful tools for crossing through the rough terrain they faced, literally and figuratively. When they indeed got through Pharaoh, they proved it is possible to get through even the harshest ground. The human spirit and the divine presence are always vaster than any one time, no matter how hard. May we be the crossers now, as our ancestors were then. We will indeed cross through this time, and we will do so together through the work we do and through the healing power of love. Shabbat Shalom. Bruchim to you. Thank you so much.